This is being recorded. Did anyone see any discrepancies, any additions, any problems with the minutes from our last meeting?
Looks good to me.
If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have short agenda as usual, and we talked about discussing our mechanism to review infrastructure plans. And lo and behold, we have a big spreadsheet in front of us from golf. I've read everyone's input, and also Jeff's suggestion that we begin by visiting with the golf committee. Excellent suggestion. So I have sent, I don't have telephone numbers, so I sent an email to the chair of the golf committee and exploring that idea. Hopefully we'll hear back real soon. Also, we will want to set up a meeting by Zoom as usual with golf. Now, exactly who, I guess we should discuss.
Gary, could I stop you for a minute?
Sure.
They don't have that information. That information didn't go to the golf committee.
No, we're aware of the dollars and cents they don't have, but if they're doing what our golf players think they're doing, the golf players on our committee, we believed that they would be in discussions with the staff from time to time. Is that not true?
They're in discussions, but you got a download of some very, very detailed information that I don't think has been made available to the golf committee. I would just double check, before you set up any kind of a meeting with them, that you give that, make sure they have that information in front of them in time to meet with you. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Jeff, are the dollars and cents the first thing on your mind when you suggested the meeting? Now, when we began this discussion about infrastructure needs and so forth a couple of months ago, I think most of us envisioned visiting with the other committees from time to time to get their input, their ideas on future needs and so forth.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I just don't think they have the information to talk smartly with you.
There were some questions, and I did not compile a complete list. I may ask if a golf player may want to volunteer to combine the questions that have come up in the last 3 or 4 days during this discussion. But anyway, what were some of the thoughts that you believe the golf committee may have in regards to future needs, their impressions? Jeff, I think you had.
So Gary, let me step in there and I'll at least share my thoughts on that. So the golf committee may not have all of the financial details that we just received, but the golf committee is aware of what each one of the golf courses is dealing with each one of the golf courses' perspectives on maintaining their course and running their operations. Those insights, I think, are important for us to have context to the numbers and to understand where those discussions have gone with the golf committee and the staff specific to those areas. So we would have a better conceptual understanding of that before we start looking into specific numbers and specific categorization of things. The other piece of it that I thought that the golf committee would be able to help us with would be is their views, their insights into plans for how we sustain and maintain our golf courses, what goes into that, and what they think are the important elements that make up that, so that when we're then talking with the staff specifically about the numbers, then we can have that context into seeing whether those numbers match the plans that we would think would be represented by those numbers. Again, maintaining and sustaining the golf course infrastructure in operations. So that was my thought. And just a couple conversations, sidebar conversations with people, they thought that would be maybe helpful as we then take it to the next step, which would be a more detailed discussion with the staff to try and maybe clean up the spreadsheets and that we had talked about in some of the emails we shared. Over.
No, I agree. Hopefully, we'll get a response soon, and I'll check with everybody for calendar time whenever we get a response from golf committee.
May I interject? I think possibly some of Larry's and Tom's questions regarding the rolling stock, we probably need to meet with, maybe Dick could clarify, wouldn't Dallas Fetterhoff, I don't know if those would come into fleet knowledge, but I'd think it would be wise to know the average age of the equipment that they're replacing, because it looks to me like they've assumed they need it every so many years, and I think we should look into the reasons that they feel that way.
You'd have to get the superintendents involved too.
Okay.
You'd need a guy with a lot of tenure. Maybe Juan would be a good one, Juan Nunez, to give you the on the ground look at some of those things.
Yeah, I put together some general questions for any kind of rolling stock that was basically, when did you buy it? What's its lifespan? I think the majority of the data sheet we got from golf, we need to get answers to those questions, because that'll drive us to be able, that'll help us understand, are they really capitalizing a piece of equipment that's worn out, or are they on a more aggressive capital replenishment plan than that? And if they are, okay, but we got to make sure that lines up to the budget. So I think that probably 175 or 80 item list, I think that generic question needs to get flowed back to the golf department to answer. It would make our conversation with the golf department go a whole lot faster if we push those questions out in advance. I think there's a few others that I would call outliers that we probably need some more data about. I mean, clearly there's a clubhouse renovation budget line in there. There's a golf course renovation budget line in there. There's bunker rebuild budget lines in there. There's a backhoe, as Kathy pointed out, which kind of sticks out because it's like, okay, why does the golf department need a dedicated backhoe? Stuff like that. I think those are all specific case questions that we could push back to the golf folks right now and have them in a position to bring the data to us when we sit down with them. I mean, don't have any idea what their plans are. They pick on bunker rebuilds. I don't have any idea what their plans are for rebuild. I don't know how many square feet of bunkers. I don't know what the details underneath of that, their anticipation of a bunker rebuild look like. I got some data from my old club. I know what that club spent doing a bunker rebuild, and I got a fair bit of the underlying structure behind that cost. But can't compare the two until we know whether or not the data is comparable.
Another word that popped up in some questions, some discussions was standardization. Are they all different? Do they have to be different on some of their routines? A lot of questions. Some may obviously have been answered, but it's our job.
And Gary, associated with that, I just brought up standardization, but when you think about the plans and as Larry was talking, bunker rebuilds and stuff like that, and you got all the different golf courses, some synchronization between them would surely mean some kind of efficiencies, as we go forward. So just understanding what that looks like across all the different golf courses, I think would help us better understand how each golf course fits into the bigger picture, right, in sustaining that infrastructure. And that's one of the things that I think would be very beneficial for us to understand going forward.
Agreed.
Well, Gary, I think I probably wrote the most on the first pass review of that. I would not have a problem picking up Tom's comments and Kathy's comments and Jeff's comments and trying to roll that into a package to feed back to the golf department.
Excellent. I appreciate you volunteering.
That's all right. I can probably knock that out somewhere in the next couple of days because it's going to be really crappy weather and I'm not playing any golf anyway.
Hey, I grabbed Excel over the weekend and I didn't realize the number of things I had forgotten since my paycheck depended on part of that. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem.
And
I'll pull that together, send a draft out to everybody, let everybody have a whack at the pinata before we send it on.
yeah,
And Gary, from Jeff here, just a question for you. And unfortunately, Karina is not here, but we had talked in previous meetings about, did she ever provide you a schedule of when we would be able to meet with these different departments? So we have some idea of what time horizon we're working on. Over?
no, we haven't received that.
I think we need to add a question
check
to
with
Jeff, and that's when are we going to get a similar done from the other departments like we got from golf? I mean, I'll give them credit for, somebody had to be the first one in the barrel, and congratulations, it was them. But when are we going to get the rest of it?
Yeah, I'll check with Karina on scheduling, and I think we probably should be glad we received golf quickly because it is the biggest topic as far as I can tell, aside from roads, water. But anyway, it's a huge project.
Yeah.
Okay, what else did I?
Well, I'm wondering, and again, this may be a Dick question, but the Balboa renovation, I would guess, is probably the specifics of that are in the hands of Stephanie Heffer. Is that, I don't think the golf department has that. Can anybody confirm that? Did we get that detail from her?
That I can't tell you. I don't know.
I would
From
hope.
prior meetings, is that not what you understood, Tom?
If you're talking about Balboa Club, not the golf course, yeah,
Yes.
that would be in Stephanie's hands. To me, that just looks like a leftover number from last year, and I'm guessing that's some kind of a renovation number, not a demolish and replace number. But I don't know. I mean, we have to ask all those questions.
Yeah,
But,
I
I mean,
think that,
basically, yeah, I associate that with Stephanie and not the golf department.
okay. Because I think the corresponding question there would be, what are the increments between, the clubhouse renovation is a great example. What do you need to do to prevent the clubhouse from continuing to deteriorate? What do you need to do to renovate it? What are your options? There's probably 2 or 3 detents in that switch somewhere, and they all have dollar figures associated with them. Hopefully they have some kind of a statement of, I want to be careful to use the word requirements because that's probably a little strong, but there's got to be at least some kind of a mental model of what that buys, and we're in a situation where we're probably going to end up being by the budget, realistically. So it's a good idea to know if I got a $100,000 solution, I get this. If I got a $500,000 solution, I do that. If I got a $2 million solution, I get something else. And then that's information that the board can use to determine which of those options they want to pursue, assuming they have the budget to pursue any of them.
Let me give you a look under the tent that will even confuse things more. We got a very, in my opinion, very exciting potential tenant for the Balboa Club.
Cool.
And this potential tenant is willing to spend some of his company's money to renovate.
Mm-hmm.
So that has slowed things. But again, that this could be a win-win. But it's further holding back, the information you really need. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, so let me ask that question this way, Dick. If what I'm kind of hearing you say is the board is in a sensitive negotiation with the future tenant that they would not necessarily wish to disclose to the world right now.
We can.
And you may basically be asking us to waive off looking at Balboa Clubhouse renovation until after you've had the chance to finalize that potential arrangement.
And that could be as soon as 2 weeks, maybe.
Makes
So
sense.
for what that's worth.
Sure.
As I remember discussions last fall, this can was kicked again because people wanted to know about uses. What was the possibility of a new use or any use for the building before anybody wanted to discuss very much in depth about the cost. Sounds like good news, Dick.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Good.
Hey, Gary, quick question associated with that. There's always been conversations also about redoing sprinkler systems and stuff like that associated with that golf course. And I would imagine that if we were to forecast forward, there might be others like that. Is that tied up in the same thing that Dick's talking about, or is that separate also? And are we going to get into that with the golf department, or is that something that will be with another department? Over.
And I view that as golf, separate from the club house building.
They're separate discussions.
Okay, that helps.
Good.
And chances are good for the irrigation system in what's listed, I think, as Balboa renovation. Would we go to Heifer or to Juan or both to find that information?
I'd go to both.
Okay.
Speaking of that, has anybody played Balboa since Juan started the sort of a mini project last fall?
I've played it a couple times. He's making nice progress for, I mean, there's still holes that need to be done, but I think it's wonderful. And with the roving crew, maybe they can do the same thing to a few holes on Isabella and a few of the other courses, but you
Great.
don't rattle your teeth and you don't ruin your back on some of the holes.
Good
I
news.
played it. Go ahead, Gary.
Kathy, you mentioned roving. What was that?
Oh, I
Roving crew?
believe, I hope I'm accurate in this. I believe the budget included installing a roving team of some of the more talented employees. And I think that was included back in the budget, that they would be shared more by the golf course. That was the 2 or 3 new added employees. They're more experienced people that you don't have to train and supervise, who can do some tasks like that that are shared by all of the courses. That was
Okay.
my understanding anyway.
All right. I couldn't remember that exact detail, but I remember in early budget discussions with staff, we were told that they used to have a roving crew that took care of all the sprinkler breakdowns. And then at some point that was taken away. So if that's been reinstated, then it makes all the sense. Yeah. Okay. I believe it was Larry also that put together a list of review questions, financial plan review questions. So unless somebody's had any later thoughts, we will follow that line of discussions when we get together with the staff. For lack of a better name, it's financial plan review process was the heading on that. It's a compilation of questions that the committee had, some best ideas put together. So we'll keep that when we arrange for these meetings, and I will check with Karina about the other reports that we expect to see and schedule for best meeting times.
Yeah, Gary, I think I'd put it this way. It's as good a plan as we're going to put together right now until we actually start the dialogue. It's the classic, all plans are wrong, some plans are useful, kind of equation right now. So we'll start the dialogue. If the questions work, great, we'll keep questions. If the questions don't work, then we'll go fix the questions and redline them and move on as we go.
Sometimes these things take on a life of their own once you get started. Okay. This was not on the agenda separately, but we did have received some information on the conversion of the sanitation trucks to the mechanical pickup versions. And most of it made sense. We'd have to agree, we'd have to depend on the engineer, Mr. Jason, to pick the right truck. The website for that company lists, if I remember correctly, 3, maybe 4 trucks that would make sense for this use. One of them had a so-called patented differences in their lifting arm. But anyway, those are engineering type questions, and Mr. Jason, I'm sure, has looked at those. And the question I was going to have for Karina, since she's on top of all these, was the big number that jumped out at a couple of us, the insurance question. There was $1,222 increase in unit insurance cost. And that sounded a little odd, but Has anybody heard anything or been able to learn anything else about that item?
Gary, the only thing that I could think of after reflecting on it was either one of two things. One, because it's a new equipment item, it has a higher insurance just for being newer. The second piece is whether there's maybe some kind of liability when you're operating an automated arm. So, but I don't know the answer.
Yeah, yeah. And it may be the new equipment cost. We see that when we buy a automobile. All right, anything to be said about the conversion, the truck conversion issue?
Well, unfortunately, I had a ton of questions. And my biggest issue was I couldn't print out the entire chart. It kept on cutting up the right side. But I guess just starting from it, currently it costs us $575,000. However, they're using a baseline of $825,000, or an increase of $250,000 from where we are today. Is that correct? That's their baseline.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Tom, and I think the rationale for that was the current 3-truck fleet that they have is insufficient to meet the future needs of the community, so they're going to have to add a 4th truck. So all that,
Right.
the difference between the 575 and the 825 was acquisition, care and feeding costs for the truck and the staff necessary to run it.
Right. So they're basically saying, over time, we're going to wash out the current fleet of 3, replace them with 3 new ones, plus a 4th new one.
Yes,
Okay.
that was my understanding.
So the current debt service goes from 82,000 to 205,000. Which,
Yeah, I think the other point they were trying to make is 3 of the 4 trucks are pretty much near the end of their service life, so they're going to have to be recapitalized.
right, that part I didn't know. So over time, I can see going from 575 to 825. I just didn't know whether they're talking about next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. There's not a pro forma. This is just a snapshot today and a snapshot hypothetically X years from now. And that transition it wasn't just clear to me at all how we, we're going to get there. But now they're saying that's your baseline of 825. We're going to transition to this new fleet of side loaders, a mini and a grappler. And it's not clear to me how they were planning on making that transition without just selling the 3 we have today, and next year going big bang into the new fleet of 6 trucks. Is that correct? And maybe this really isn't what I'm here supposed to be doing, which is looking at the financials, as opposed to trying to figure out in my head, how are they going to do this? I get mixed up between just the number part and the real life managerial part.
Yeah, well, from what I've read, it's taking delivery of the new ones and selling the old ones.
Okay, so all this part I miss because all I'm working with is a hunk of paper.
Yeah, and by the way, I think it's obvious to everybody, this is switching to a lease, not ownership.
Okay. The thing that I kind of don't understand is that the cost per side loader of 51,309, which I didn't write down really, is the exact same as the cost of a rear loader, which is surprising to me because I was thinking a side loader would be more expensive because it's more sophisticated and modern and all this other stuff. But if the cost of a side loader is exactly the same as the cost of a rear loader, then so be it.
Yeah, Tom, if you look at their website on that
Mhm.
stuff, they actually say that the side loader is what they sell more of. So I think that the numbers probably are true in that, they figured it out on how to control the cost.
Well,
I think the other part of that is you're looking at lease versus buy. You're talking the side loader, you're talking about that much money to lease it for 2 years. With a rear loader, you're talking about that much money to buy it over whatever the span of time is, 3 years, 4 years, whatever the finance timeline is. You know, you'd possibly have a little residual value out of that truck, once you paid it off. But from the sound of it, by the time you pay it off, it's pretty beat up. And so you're not going to get a heck of a lot out of it when you trade it back in.
But ultimately, with a rear loader, you're going to need a crew of 2. With a side loader, allegedly, you don't need a crew of anything. You're always going to save the 2 people or $100,000 a year with a side loader. And if the cost of the 2 are the same, then it's a total no-brainer. That's what we're saying.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, when I did the math, and everybody gets ROI, does their ROI a little differently, but when I looked at ROI, the return on investment, you're somewhere out around 3.4, 3.5 years, because assuming that, and I made an assumption that it's a big bang move. They assuming that the board has the dollars to make the initial acquisition of this equipment, you're going to shell out about $1 million more than you would if you just recapitalized the trucks, actually a little over 1.1 mil by my math. But you're going to save about $335,000 a year, almost all of that in salaries, because you don't have to have 8 people, 2 per truck times 4 trucks,
Right.
following the truck around all day. So you're gonna save about $335K a year. It's gonna take you, without putting a time value of money number on it, your straight returns around 3.4 years. So it's certainly, and then you're gonna derive that $300,000 worth of benefit ad infinitum, going on. It seems like the right thing to do financially. Again, our standpoint is we don't know what the board's budget situation is, don't know what the plan is to actually roll this in. Is this gonna be phased in, a truck per year over 3 or 4 years? Are they gonna make the big buy this year? Is there gonna be some intermediate step? That's, that'll affect the numbers and the return on investment timeline. But it certainly sounds like they need to add a 4th truck to the fleet now. So I would assume they would at least add the side loader and buy enough of the 64-gallon containers and all of that to be able to set up the side loader routes and let that magic start to occur. But said exactly how they're going to implement it's more of a Karina question.
Mhm. Okay.
Let me jump in as an operator. I spent a lifetime being an operator, and to me, the operational aspect of this is far outweighs any of the financial aspects of it. You don't pick up somebody's trash, you get a phone call. Then you got to respond to the phone call. Then you got to go back out. And they struggled and struggled and struggled to get guys to do this. This eliminates that.
Oh, I agree. And from the sound of the write-up, they're having to divert resources away from other things. So they're pulling people away from their day jobs to go haul trash. And so the community is not able to take advantage of what they initially hired these folks to do. Getting rid of the labor burn gives you a more reliable, more consistent system. It also lets those people go back to doing what they were originally hired to do, whatever that might happen to be. And so you're going to get an improvement in the overall circumstances of the community. Exactly what that looks like, I don't really know, because I don't know what these guys do.
Dick, is it your understanding that this plan is, if the board agrees, this is going to take place in the fourth quarter this year?
I think it starts then. I think it starts then. It won't be, all at once, as you guys have discussed. They'll roll into this as they replace equipment.
Okay. Appreciate that, Dick. Thanks.
If you saw the presentation, all the dumb questions I asked, I didn't get the information in time to review it before that meeting. So I have an excuse.
Okay, I have another question regarding the grapple truck. Everything else, I believe, is replacing our current equipment. It's not clear to me that the grapple truck is replacing anything. To me, it sounds like a new purchase.
Is that the small one?
No, there's a mini truck, I think, dedicated more towards in-house pickup, which makes sense. But the grapple truck, when I at least looked at it online, it said it's for stuff like picking up refrigerators and stoves and, really large, stuff that people are throwing away.
Yeah, I think it's your Friday pickups, all that outside stuff that you can't fit in the trash can that you got to go buy a tag to haul away. I think that's what that grapple truck is for. And, the arm's got enough power to be able to pick up, I have no idea, I had to look at a website, probably 300, 400, 500 pounds without human beings having to lift it.
That was
Right.
mine. That's
It's
my
just that-
interpretation.
I thought the standard for a new purchase was a little bit higher than for replacement purchase. Replacement, you're just, doing the same thing you were yesterday. If it's a new function, then I was kind of thinking you're supposed to come up with some kind of a cost benefit analysis for that. Because I thought right now, if you wanted to throw a refrigerator, we outsourced that. We called somebody else up and they came and picked it up.
Well,
The issue there is if all what could very well be misinformation on my part, are we going insourcing to something we had formerly outsourced?
well, I'd have to go to our website to do some refresh reading because I was under the impression there was a fee for pickup of certain
There is.
items.
There is.
There is.
I haven't had to
Small
use it,
dollars.
so I have not reread that material.
Well, I can only tell you that a friend of mine called for pickup of a refrigerator. The people did not come and pick it up. So when he called and complained to the POA, they said, it wasn't our guys who were supposed to pick up the refrigerator. It was some, people that they had called up. So that's why I was thinking it was outsourced. And
Well,
if we are replacing a grapple truck, it's not on the left side of the page, it's on the right. So it's just,
So I think, but I don't know, from what I've seen of the guys go through, the Friday pickups are normally limited to the same kind of numbers that we ask the numbers to be tied to for normal trash pickups. So, everything has to be cut and bundled, generally less than 40 or 50 pounds. And I think the mechanical way they do it now is one of our 3 trucks makes a run on Friday. One of our 3 current trucks makes a run on Friday with a driver and 2 loaders, and they pick stuff up and throw it in the back of the truck. Outside stuff, refrigerators being a great example, or probably beyond what the insurance requirement is for what these guys are allowed to lift. So the big outside stuff like that's going to have to be outsourced to somebody else that's got the ability to go do it. But I think what you're talking about here is you're not going to have that truck. If you continue that service, you're going to have to keep one of your trucks. You're going to have a 3-man crew doing that pickup on a Friday at a cost, or you can go buy the grapple truck which is one driver, you know, and probably the ability in that truck to pick up a heck of a lot more than a couple of individuals could with minimal risk to the vehicle or the driver. Potentially, I think the cost savings is going to come from that same labor reduction that you get from the other trucks, where you're only going to have one, only going to have a driver instead of a driver and the guys that are in the back load.
Okay, then the last issue, again with table 5, was they're purchasing a rear load truck, a grapple truck. They are having one driver and one worker for both of them. I guess my knee-jerk reaction was there are 2 trucks, 2 drivers. It's certainly possible that due to intermittent use, they could just switch off. So one driver and one worker may be sufficient.
That's a fair point.
I guess the other thing that you just mentioned was, is the grapple truck only going to be used on Fridays?
That's a possibility, and I guess it sounds like the consulting answer. It probably depends. I mean, if I were the person answering that question, I would say normally that's probably what I would do, is only send it out on Friday with whoever's going to drive the Friday truck. That said, if we had a heavy storm, knocked down a bunch of trees, you know, anything like that happened where you've got extra pickup schedule, then then you've got the asset available. You know, looking out a little bit further, though I doubt that we've really looked at this, would be if I'm only using that truck 1 day a week out of 5, maybe I could make a deal with somebody somewhere in a nearby town to sublet the truck to them, pick up a few dollars. I don't know if that's viable or not, but you know, that's probably second, third order effect.
Right.
Yeah, all sorts of suppositions here, but if we can say things like if I had the responsibility, then during the other days in the week, when I saw 2 or 3 men go out to do some work, if one man with this grapple truck could do the moving of equipment and so forth, then that's exactly where I'd send it. But we don't have all of those answers, but that's one of the things we depend on Jason.
Well, I think Tom's got a good point, that the idea that we're saying person in person, and they each have a salary associated with that driver task. So maybe that's an opportunity to cross couple and save a few dollars. But in the grand scheme of things, it's an opportunity to maybe get it a little bit more efficient once the machine gets stood up and running.
Okay. Does anything else need to be said about that subject?
Well, are we being asked to approve the expenditure? And if so, I think we need more investigation to decide whether or not, or are we just conjecturing about this because it's there? I'm confused.
Yes. Well, the subject started last fall with the overall budget figures, and then this detail came out this week or last week. So it seemed natural to look at it. So far, I haven't heard a big negative. As a matter of fact, everything looks positive from where I see it.
Yeah, and I'll look at that from a slightly different viewpoint, Gary. I wasn't sure, so I actually went and pulled the newly approved F&P charter, and I compared the charter against this task. And maybe I'm not interpreting the charter correctly, but if I read the charter, it looks to me like this would not be something that would be an F&P responsibility unless the board specifically put it in our hands. Karina was kind enough to give us the data in response to your request to let us do what we've done with it to this point. So I don't know whether we have any further action on this or not, bottom line.
Under our watchful eye, so to speak, to look for trends, we see no problems with this project. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm okay with that. I don't know how other people feel.
I think if you guys have a legitimate question, ask it. I mean, and quit being so literal. You know, if you got a question, ask it and get an answer.
That's the reason I jumped into this a few days ago, because no one had seen details, and it made sense to look at details. And so far, everything we've seen looks and makes perfect sense. If this was a one-man project, one-man company, I would have made the decision long ago. We've all seen how hard it is to get people to do this kind of work, and nothing in the financing part, nothing jumps out as being a bad idea. So that's where I was, and that's where I am.
Well, for me, in the grand scheme of things, I think that this is where we're going almost no matter what. It's just a better technology, fewer people, tremendous management headaches right now. We're gonna end up doing this almost no matter what.
And
The only
also,
problem I had is saying that the cost of a side loader is the same as the cost of a rear loader. Intuitively, that makes no sense. You're saving 2 people a truck. The cost of technology has to eat into that. But cost benefit aside, you just got to do this. I mean, I would tend to approve this unless the cost benefit were overwhelmingly against it, and that's not likely.
and we haven't even crunched the numbers on workers' compensation insurance costs. Yeah.
So I guess let me suggest this, Gary, see if it works for everybody else. I guess I would, at that point, make a motion that we thank Karina for providing us with supporting data that she's provided us associated with this trade-off, and stand down on further activity. And the only caveat on that might be if there was a significant change in any of these numbers as they go into the execution phase on this, that they might want to resurface it. But I don't know if that would be my motion. See whether or not anybody supports that motion.
Sure. Second,
I'll second.
in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Larry.
But next time, don't make the motion so long. My shorthand's rusty.
Sorry about that.
It's quite all right.
You can always.
Well, the motion could have been, well, tell them it's cool, thanks very much, but that probably wouldn't quite make it in the write-up either.
I can look at the recording.
Dick has said a few times, we should not be too literal. We're all, I think most of us are pretty technical sometimes, but I think of it, these things this way. If I was sitting on the board, or if I was sitting in the chair that had to make the decision, what questions would I ask? And that's the way I approach this project. By project, I mean the finance committee. So the answer may come quickly, but it may take longer sometimes. But that's the way I approach this, and that's my interpretation of what we've been given by the board. Okay. Uh, We were going to discuss the annual report. Tom did, in my opinion, Tom put together a good format. Has anybody had the chance to look at that? Some of us were not around early in the year when the committee got kicked off and began looking at certain things. But it appears to me this is a good format because it talks about what the committee worked on and the result. Kathy, you were around. Did you see anything that needed to be added?
No, I didn't. In fact, I recorded that Tom had mentioned it wasn't a final version, and it's like, well, it looks final to me. I thought it was, as usual, Tom's very complete project.
Tom is an author. He's sitting in the dark right now.
He's shy.
All right. I am going to spend a little more time with that, and we will before too long in the future put together a 2020 report. A lot of the things I reported for the quarter report were in here because so many things happened in the last part of the year. So what comments do we have? Jeff had to leave us. He had to go to another meeting, I understand. But does anyone have comments today?
Have you been in your email this morning?
Mine, yes.
Do you see from Ella that you have an applicant for your committee?
I did. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'll need to check with you on availability when I try to schedule an interview. What's your rest of your week like? Or do we want to do this offline?
Let's do it offline because I'm going out of town again.
Okay, makes sense because my calendar is messy too. First thing tomorrow morning is to get a shot. Larry.
No comment, sir, but congratulations to you on being able to get a shot.
Well, that's a subject I don't like to face, but I can't slow down the calendar. It happens. Anything else, Kathy?
Nope, I'm good.
Mr. Tom?
I got nothing.
You got, okay. Dick?
Just a new resume. That's all. That's all.
All right. Super. All right. I will check with the golf committee, and if they believe they have nothing more to offer that hasn't already come through the golfing staff, then I'll let you know. But otherwise, I would like to set a meeting. It just makes sense to me that as we go through these things, sometimes it makes sense to hear what someone else has already done or already thought about. Whether it probably won't be financial, may not be, but I think it's a good idea to talk to them. So as soon as I get a feedback, I'll check with you all on scheduling a Zoom meeting. And with that,
Can
and
we
I also
talk about that, Gary? Can we talk about that for just a second?
What?
Larry is gonna kind of put together our issues with respect to the big exhibit that we got. Is that correct? And that'll take him 3 or 4 days, maybe. And as Dick said, the golf committee hasn't gotten the report that we got from Karina. So when you talk to the golf committee, would it make sense for you to forward with them the issues that we have and the information, or you're just gonna talk to them about stuff in general? I mean, so I'm talking about sequencing and ordering.
My thought was to talk to them about their general issues.
Okay,
Uh,
not necessarily being connected to the exhibit and our specific issues.
right.
Okay.
No, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Mhm.
Now, like I said earlier, sometimes conversations take on a life of their own. Now, if it makes sense to pursue the financial angle, then I'll do that. But I don't believe the golf committee gets deep into the weeds of the dollars. They may get involved in asking for or thinking a future project is a good idea. I don't know. I've not been to one of their meetings. I failed to.
I chair the golf committee, and their focus is mostly on revenue.
Yeah.
And revenue producing ideas, marketing ideas, getting more golfers in here to play. The superintendents have all done really good work in staying under budget and working to a budget. So that's almost a non-starter in their discussions. They're more on the revenue side and the pricing side, rounds played, weather, stuff like that.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
yeah, when I look at the exhibits, my high level conclusions were a lot of the numbers are being driven by the golf course update. And right now, it's focused on Balboa Golf Course. And my big concern is what's the next golf course behind Balboa Golf Course, because with a 7-year outlook, there's nothing in there. And I don't know if the golf committee thinks in terms of, we have 8 courses and we probably should be updating one course every 4 to 5 years. So that would particularly be of interest to me. Another big dollar eater is bunkers. And I don't know if the golf committee thinks about bunkers, but every time you do that for a golf course, it's a minimum of $500,000 apparently. And it could be, it could go north of that. I don't know.
Are you talking about replacing the entire bunker, sand, everything, build a new drain, or what? What?
I think they're talking about the vision is redoing a golf course with billy bunkers, which would require digging out all the old bunkers and just, replacing them like they're brand new. And I think even if you don't do billy bunkers, which is a special technology, I think they're still thinking about doing something like that anyway. It's just the billy bunkers is kind of a one step up from just, a plain old bunker. But, what the cost of renovating a bunker is, why is it needed? What happens if you don't do that? Stuff like that. And that may or may not be within the purview of the golf committee. I'm sure they talked about it, but whether they've developed any kind of a special point of view. Another big dollar eater is the golf carts. And there probably was 1 or 2 other really big things. Oh, well, rolling stock, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
But
I
if I were just talking to the golf committee, I would probably personally, say, well, what's your point of view on this XYZ? But otherwise, certainly you want them to tell you what they think, no matter what. You don't want to be feeding them, lines and putting words in their mouth and all that other stuff. But ultimately, I'm telling you right now, those issues are high on my list. and you're gonna have a hard time shutting me up or convincing me not to talk about those things.
Well, that was my plan. Not, I wasn't going to give somebody a spreadsheet and work backwards to a solution. Nothing like that. It would be conversational. And did we hear something last year about the next golf course that was going to need a lot of attention? Was that DeSoto, or did I?
It would be Ponce.
Ponce. So there is a plan someplace on or a schedule.
Well, there's a thought. I've never seen a plan.
Okay.
But let me tell Tom that if you ask 500 golfers what needs to be done, you're going to get 499 different answers. They're in the golfer in the village that doesn't have a unique opinion on what needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I think that this, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I was just going to say, with what Larry puts together, won't our opportunity come not from the golf committee, but maybe meeting with the superintendents in one?
Yeah.
That's, as I understand that, and that would be the question for the renovation. I will submit that our home course back in Nebraska was Firethorn. And for about the last 10 years we were there, which would be 23 years ago, they were saying how badly the course needed to be renovated. Well, renovation has never taken place and it still putts beautifully. And the course is in my opinion, very good shape. So renos are, maybe we can discuss with the superintendents and Tom a little bit of want versus need when that comes. And I disagree with Dick. If you asked 500,000 golfers, I think you'd get 510,000 different answers, but that's a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
All right. And as far as what the golf committee may have to offer or to add to our questions and so forth, I just think it's appropriate anytime we go to work on a big project. We talk to the committee that's there almost daily. So, and I think we should respect their work. They may have a 10-minute conversation. They may have very little to say, but at least we ask, and that may be important.
Yeah, I think kind of to Kathy's point, the other question that you have to answer when you're setting up a golf course is, and my club in Texas hosted USGA amateur qualifiers and things like that. They were a higher end club. It depends on who your target audience is. I mean, if your target audience is village residents and locals who pay fees to come in and play golf, they're looking for an overall good quality golf course. They're looking for, they want the grass to be green. They don't want to be hitting off bare spots. They don't want to be putting through bare spots. They don't want to be hitting off concrete traps, things like that. They want what I call a medium quality golf course. If you are going to try to get college qualifiers played here, if you're going to try to get sectionals for USGA, US senior men, something like that, you're going to have to take a golf course and you're going to have to invest and you're going to have to set the course up differently. So it's really a question of what you're really trying to do, and our target is probably a good quality resort golf course, and an investment threshold that lines up to that. And you're not trying to turn it into Augusta National or Pebble Beach, because that's just not your target demographic.
Okay. Anything else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? In favor? Aye. Thank you all.
Thanks, folks. Everybody have a great day.
Okay.